Good morning, this is Kelley Hobart from Alpaca Direct, and today we're going to be talking about a lovely hat pattern by Amy Gunderson, and it's called A Little to the Left. And so this is the hat that I'm talking about, and we're going to be talking about how to start the top of this pattern because it was a little hard to start the way it was written, so I'll show you an easier way that I found. Whenever I have a hard time figuring out how to do something or something's a little bit difficult for me, the first thing that I ask myself is there a little easier way to do it and get the same job accomplished and do it more easily? So that's what I did with this pattern, and then I went ahead and I used this lovely yarn. It's called the Classic Shades, and it comes in a bunch of different colorways, and it's striped beautifully. It's a wool acrylic blend by Universal Yarn, and it has really nice yardage on it. So you could actually get 2 hats out of this. I have already used some of this, so this is, I had more than this left over, but I used it for other things. So you could easily make a hat for you and maybe one for your child to match. So anyway, so here is the project that we're making, and as we're going along, if you have any questions, please let us know and we can answer them right now for you. And also, if you enjoy this, go ahead and share with your friends. Let us know who you are, maybe where you're from, and what you're working on. We love learning from you, so that's totally fantastic. And don't forget to push that like button as we're going along. So yes, this is the pattern. That's from Amy Gunderson, and every week we have prizes. So this last week we had a prize for Building in Color book, and this week the prize is for this Classic Shades Big Time, and I'm going to give you 2 skeins of it, not in this colorway, but in different colorways, so that you can either do a hat and a cowl, or you can do whatever you like. So
mention that's a free pattern too. So
yes, and I'm also including this copy of this pattern just in case you want to make this hat. It was a really fun project, and I was able to make it in just a couple hours, right, Jim? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was totally easy. So after I got through that cast on and figured out an easier way to cast on, it was really easy to do. So the first thing that I'm going to be showing you is the pattern starts out with casting on 8 stitches. And I have this great big long needle here, and these are Knitter's Pride needles, and they're called Dreams. And what I like about these is they have a really super nice finish on it, and it also has a lace tip. So doing this kind of work with these Knitter's Pride needles is fantastic because it's just a great needle with that lace tip on there, and the highly polished finish is really fantastic. So I have cast on my 8 stitches, and I always do magic loop, as you guys probably know. So I would take my 4 stitches and split it in half. So let me and normally you don't have to use quite as long of a cord. I just grab whatever I have. That's what I do. So I have my 4 stitches on each one. And in the pattern, if you look at it, it tells you to cast on 8 stitches and then knit 1 round. So you can see with this yarn, if I was knitting with a tip that was not a lace tip on it, it would be kind of a pain. So having these sharp points on the needles really makes it easier to work with this yarn that is single ply and totally. Jim, did you want me to come around?
You could.
Would it be? I'm going to walk around so that I can sit down in the chair and we can be filmed more easily.
And they wanted to know what this pattern was too, so.
What's that?
They wanted to know about the pattern too.
Yeah, the pattern is found on Alpaca Direct. It's called A Little to the Left by Amy Gunderson. And so we will be posting that today. So what I'm doing right now is on the setup round, it tells you to knit. Okay?
A little bit.
So I'm going ahead and knitting across my round. So, and then on the next round, what it has you do, it tells you to make one. One second, Jim, I have to slide this around, and then you can just leave that right there. So don't worry about this knit front and back. I was trying to figure out an easier way to do my increases so that it didn't knot up into a big ball. You can see how this is kind of hard to even slide on there, right? And I didn't knit it particularly tight. It's just, it's difficult to start. So this one says slip one, make one purl. So if I slipped a stitch and I tried to make a purl right in here, it would be so tight that it's going to drive me nuts. So what I decided to do is just do a yarn over. So I slip one and do a yarn over and slip one. You see how this is single ply yarn and it kind of likes to, sorry Jim, I have to grab it, and slip one, slip the whole strand, yarn over, slip one, yarn over. But do you see how it's tight like this? If I was making one purl, it ties up into this huge knot, don't you think, Jim? I showed my husband because he's going, what are you doing? It's like I'm trying to find an easier way to do my increases on this first round. Do you see how tight it is? It's just like a pain in your ear. So this one is I'm doing yarn overs, okay?
So what is it you're doing that solves it?
What we're doing is instead of doing make one purl, we're doing, oops, this one wasn't supposed to be a knit. It's supposed to be a slip one, yarn over. Slip one, yarn over. So what I'm trying to do, slip one, yarn over, slip one, yarn over. What I'm trying to do is do increases, but not have them be so tight that I want to, you know, kill the yarn and burn it before I'm done. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do increases more easily, and you can see that my cord is twisting around in circles and it's being a pain in the neck, and this doesn't want to go on here very easily. So this was the problem that I was having when I was doing it. So you see how I'm struggling to put it on here? So this was the problem I was trying to solve for. It's like, oh, it's a total pain. Okay, anyways, let's pull me some length. And then what I'm going to do, because I started with my slip one, okay, then I'm going to be going on this next row here. It is a M1 Purl one, but you can't purl that yarn over just in the front because it'll make a hole. So what you do is you tip around to the back here and you purl that yarn over through the back loop, and what it does is it closes up the hole. So on the ones that I slipped, I'm knitting, and then the yarn overs, I'm just reaching around in the back, and you can see how working with this yarn is sort of a challenge. And one second here.
It's pretty dark too.
Yeah, I might have to do a video on it so you can see it, but this is the yarn over, and what I'm trying to do is get the yarn to cooperate with me so I can actually purl it through the back loop. There, got it. And then the ones that I slipped, I'm knitting, but you can see even in the front with the ones I slipped, it's wanting to kind of cause a grief for me. This next one is a yarn over, and
Debbie Doctor says not a fan of bulky yarn on big needles.
Oh my gosh. Well, try bulky yarn, big needles, and single ply, and then all on the make one purl on a cast on of 8. I'm going, how do I do this? And I had to try it through a couple times before I got the hang of what I wanted to do. And you can see already that it's getting easier here. I just have one more side to do, and then it'll be easier. But you can see how I almost have to take this needle out and slide this other one in. You can see what a pain it was for me to get. I mean, to get them on there, you almost have to kill yourself. Yeah, it was a pill. I started this a couple times going, holy moly. If I had to do those make one purls, on top of this actual, the slip ones, I would be in a world of hurt. This was hard enough as it is. You can see that I'm struggling. So that one is a M1 Purl, but of course it's a single ply yarn and everything likes to get stuck on it. And why is that? That was almost like this one. That wasn't good. Okay. Well, you know what you guys could do too? You could just do this. You could decide that you're just going to knit around, and then on the next knit through the back loop any yarn overs, and just do a knit around and don't do a purl round yet. So that this one, somehow it's almost like I got 2 yarn overs on here. Well, you can see the problem that I was having with this. There's my yarn over right there. So just knit on this one. It's not going to make a huge difference if you knit through the back loop or you start your purling. With these, I would just knit through the back loop and forget the purling until you get a few stitches in, and just do front loop, back loop. So you can see that I'm already starting to work here. And this top with the M1 Purls, it was almost impossible for me to do. So I will do a video of this to show it more clearly, and I think I'll show you with the knit stitch instead of purling, because that was a pain in the neck to do. So let's put that aside, and let's take a look now at our right crosses and left crosses. So this one right here, I have already knit these first 3 stitches. You guys, as you're going along, don't forget the contest and post what you're working on and where you're from, and we can learn from you if you post your projects and pictures of them. So this one right here is a right cross and a left cross. So I'm going to show you how to do this first by starting by the right cross, and I've already knit the first 3 stitches.
I'm going to stop you real quick because these comments
are
are flying by. It says, it's from Debbie. She says, could you start on DPNs and then switch to magic loop?
You could start on DPNs, but even it was so tight on the with the regular magic loop, it was horrible no matter which way you did it. So if you started it, I think with my top, I did it, I didn't do the M1 Purls. I just did the knit stitches and slip one. And actually, I think on the first round, I might have knitted mine, and you really can't tell the difference. And let's look at the top of this again. See, I did mine and it was easy. I didn't start all this slipping business until I got some, really a few stitches on there. And then when it got a little bigger, then I started slipping. But if you see right here, these are not slipped. They're just regular knit stitches. And it turned out just fine, and it was so much easier because I was ready to, well, you can see right here when I was struggling with this hat pattern, it was a pain in the neck. So anyway, back to our right cross and our left cross. So on the right cross, it's sort of like doing a 1x1 cable is what it is. And so you think of holding your stitch in the rear, so you have to have your working yarn in the front when you slip that stitch, point needle tip to needle tip. Then you would work that next stitch, then you lean forward and you grab that stitch from the back and reorient those stitches. And then you would work that next stitch. So that is a right cross. So let's do that again. We're going to be holding it in the rear, so you have to have your working yarn in the front. And you knit one. And you lean forward and hold that stitch. Pull your needle out, reorient that stitch, and then do it. Now we're going to work on the left cross, where you would be holding it in the front. So you have to have your working yarn in the back, because otherwise it'll get in the way when you're trying to work. So you just hold that stitch in the front, pull it out, and then go ahead and knit it. Now let's look at that one more time. We are going to be holding it in the front, so we have our working yarn in the back, slip one, knit one, hold that in the front, reorient that stitch, and then work that stitch that we had slipped. And then we'd knit to the end, and then I'll show you these right and left crosses one more time. And this is what they look like when they're done. One leans to the right, one leans to the left, but it's basically a 1x1 cable. And that's what they're asking for in this pattern that we have here. Now, the next thing that we're going to be looking at is we're just going to look at a M1 Purl. And here I've done a few, sorry, all these cords, the long length of the cord can be a detriment. Sometimes it curls up into a mess. So, if we look at this, I have already done some M1 Purls. Okay? So I'll show you how we can do this. It's really super simple. So, I would knit the first couple stitches, and these cords are a pain, sorry. Now I'm going to make one purl. So we just stick that up on the needle as if to make one left, and then I just purl it through the back loop there. Now let's look at that a little further down here, and let's go ahead and make another make one purl. Up on the needle and go through the back, and that one is another make one purl. So that's how you make one purl. And let me just knit to the end of here, and I'll just knit just regular knitting, and then I'll show you these make one purls. And that's how you do the make one purl. You can see them in here, one right there, and so on and so forth. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the Kitchener bind off. And this is called the Kitchener bind off or the tubular bind off. And this one is, if we think of our, the Kitchener bind off is when we're doing a Kitchener stitch, it is knit, off, purl, purl, off, knit. That's the pattern, okay? So, I have, let me show you what this looks like when it's completed. It's really beautiful. Do you see that nice bind off edge? And it's super easy to do, all right? So, let's go ahead and take a look at this. I have a bunch of spare needles here and quite the mess as usual.
Debbie says she likes to use Chowgu needles because they have zero memory and never kink.
Yep, I like the Chowgu needles too, but I just use what I have. You know how it is. I use whatever's in front of me is whatever I use. Okay, so when they say to do this bind off, they tell you to use 4 times the length of your actual project that you're binding off. And I found that that was quite a bit of to use. It was extras, but I gave a nice long tail anyway, so we can take a look at it. And then I have marked the first 2 stitches, and specifically the right hand leg of the first 2 stitches. So normally when we look at the Kitchener stitch, we're talking about a setup round. We would go in as if to purl, and then go in as if to knit on the back needle. And then we would start our pattern of knit, off, purl, purl, off, knit. Okay? But when you're doing it in the round, you just work these first 2 stitches once, you mark them, and when you come back around again, you would mark them again. But to set this up so you can actually do it, you need a couple of needles because we're going to separate the knit stitches and the purl stitches from each other. So you have 1 needle in the front taking the knit stitches and 1 needle in the back taking the purl stitches, and you're just going along and separating these off the needle. Now there is a way where you can work them. Suzanne Jennings, I think it is, on Ravelry, she shows you how to do it without separating your stitches. But if you're used to doing regular Kitchener, I feel like it's easier just to go ahead and separate them, and then you will it's not quite as confusing when you're first learning. I don't know. I think that learning a new skill is hard enough without having to add complexity to it that you don't need. So I'm switching this needle around here because I'm trying to get the rest of these stitches off. So I would pull this out a little bit. You want to make sure you don't want to twist, and you want the purl stitches to stay in the back and the knit stitches to stay in the front. So hopefully I have this right. And I like this bind off though. I don't use it all that often, and I feel like I should use it more because it's not that difficult to do, and it looks really nice. So I totally want to put this on my list of tools in my toolbox, and I want to use it more often. So now I have them separated. Let me put that down, and let's take a look at this, what we've got here. And my needles are a little tiny bit short, but not too bad because I'm doing Kitchener. It's all good. All right.
Why don't you show them what you have here?
So far I have the knit stitches in the front, and my purl stitches are in the back on this silver needle. So the black needle has all knit stitches, and the purl needle, or the silver needle, has all purl stitches. And then I'm just going to do a Kitchener. Remember that I'm not doing the setup row on that we would normally do on a Kitchener, because you don't do that when you're doing it in the round. You work it the second time when you come back to it. So on this first one, I would go knit, off, purl, and I have it marked, so you need to make sure, and then you want to keep it snug. And then on the next needle, it's purl, sorry, I got a little strand caught in there, purl, off, knit. And you just bring that around through there. And then the next one, sorry, my needle, is knit, off, purl, whoop, you don't want to tangle these up if you don't have to. And then the next one is purl, off, knit.
What is it you're showing here again?
And this one is a bind off using, it's called a tubular bind off or a Kitchener bind off. And it gives you a nice rolled edge that looks beautiful. And the tubular cast on perfectly matches the tubular bind off. Or so that's what they say. To me, one is a little wider than the other. The cast on is wider than the bind off, but whatever. Anyway, this one is a knit, off, purl, a purl, off, knit, and knit, off, purl, and purl, off, knit, knit, off, purl, purl, off, knit. And then when you get to where you need a series of 4 stitches to be able to do this. So, oops, did I get something caught back there? If you get something caught like that, you can always tighten it up. There you go. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have it too tight. So I have 2 stitches left, but it's not enough to complete the next pattern. So I would just skinny it around to this other side and then continue on. If you ever have to stop, make sure you complete the pattern of knit off, purl, purl off, knit, and then you always remember that you can start at the beginning of your pattern, right? So when I go around here, it's knit off, purl, purl off, knit.
So Wendy wants to know, what types of projects is this good for?
Any of the rolled hat. Anytime you have a hat with a 2x2 brim. I mean, look at the edge that it gives you. You could do this in fingering all the way to worsted to anything. It just gives you this really neat edge. So I would totally highly recommend it. If you learn these skills and they're easy, you can just you know, bang it out. Use it for any of your projects that you want that look. I think it's totally cool. Purl off knit. And I always tell myself, knit off purl, purl off knit. And it's okay to talk to yourself. It's fine. It's good to, then you memorize the skill more easily. Because some people, you know, just hearing it, it helps them learn. Knit off purl. And purl off knit. Oh, that was not good. Went over the top. Did you see that go over the top there, that feisty little thing? And you want to make sure that your tension is about the same as your knitting, so you don't want to get too, pull it too tight, because it won't look as good. We gotta, there are certain times that, I mean, I don't think pulling stuff tight, and I'm a type A knitter, so I totally, 1 second, Jim, purl off knit. And let us know as you're going along what you're working on, and you can share with us, and we learn from you too, and that's totally fantastic. Knit off purl. And purl off knit. Okay. Now, knit, 1 second, we're close to the end here. Knit off purl. But because I have such a small sample, it's like having all thumbs. And purl off knit. Now I'm down to 2.
2 what?
I have the 2 stitches here, but I was wondering why this was caught on here, but that shouldn't. Well, you should have something didn't go quite right, because this shouldn't be marked on that stitch there. That should be my last stitch, so I somehow did not mark the right stitch. On what you would do is you'd find your 2 last stitches that you did. Oh no, yeah, that shouldn't be. See how this one is on there? That should be my first stitch that I did, and somehow I marked the wrong one. But what you would do is you'd come over to this other side right here, and you have to take these stitches and work these at the very end. So you would slip them onto your needles, but this one is kind of screwed up, so I don't know what I did with it. I did something screwy. It shouldn't have been the one that I marked, but the last 2 should be, and then you would repeat the pattern one last time, and then you're done. But somehow I have this marked here, so that's not quite right. It's probably not a great idea to be doing this while you're talking. And so here is your bind off, and you would just work those last 2 stitches the last time, a knit off purl, purl off knit, and then you're done. But don't do what I did and mark it and mark the wrong stitch. I don't know how I did that. Anyways, but that's what the bind off looks like, and it is a fantastic bind off, and I really enjoyed doing this tubular bind off for the hat, and so it's a great project to do. So anyways, all right, well, that's how you do that. And like I said, there's a ton to be learned from this pattern. It's a great pattern by Amy Gunderson, and I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can learn from it, even though it's a super simple one-night project. And once you get past the cast on, it is great fun. So go ahead and give it a try, and make sure if you have a project that you're working on and you find something that's difficult for you, ask yourself the question, how can I make this easier to do? So for this project, I chose to do yarn overs for the first couple increase rows. And then after that, I went to the M1 Purls. So it is a fantastic hat pattern, and the classic shades is the prize for this week. It is 2 skeins of this wonderful yarn, and this pattern we're going to include with it. And let's see here. Oh, the winner for last week. Yes, the winner for last week was for this wonderful book, and her name is Karen Smith. Congratulations, Karen Smith. You won. So all you have to do is give us your address and we'll send this out in the mail to you. And let us know, all of you out there, let us know what you're working on. Maybe we can learn from you and continue to post your projects, and you'll be entered to win prizes every week. So if you enjoy this, don't forget to share with others. And next week we're going to be working on these little gnomes. They're called needle protectors, and it is a pattern, let me see, by Tiny Owl Knits. It's called a gnome home. And I'm going to show you, I use the actual, I use circulars. So I'm going to show you how I changed my gnome pattern and made it for point protectors for circulars, but you could also use it for your double points. So those of you who like using double points out there will be able to share in that with me. And it involves a little bit of felting, so we get to talk about felting this next week.
Miss Dahlia says hello too.
Good morning.
And she's in Texas. There's
Good morning,
a bunch of
Miss
people
Dahlia.
joining. And
That's
it's snowing here.
awesome.
Probably not snowing in Texas.
Oh gosh, we have a winter storm warning today. I think we're gonna get maybe as much as a foot, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of snow this afternoon. So I don't know how busy our open knitting group will be tonight, but all of you out there have a great and safe week, and we'll talk to you next week when we talk about our felted little point protectors.